Hello, everybody. How are you this evening? I'm Laura Nelkin. I'm a knitwear designer. I live in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes region, and I am joined by my alter ego, Lola. If this is your first live from the studio, welcome. And if you have joined me for one of my many other live from the studios, welcome back. I think we've all been very excited for this live because I am going to be sharing photos from the Ultimate Knitting Cruise that I got back from last week, as well as some more details about the Cowl Mystery Knit Along. I've got some things I've been knitting. I've got some knitting techniques to share with you. I am going to try to keep this live to like under an hour and a half. I'd like it to be closer to an hour because I am leaving the house at 4 a.m. tomorrow morning to fly to a retreat in Illinois with Leading Men Fiber Arts. But I really wanted to do this live. I'm actually already packed, which I'm very proud of myself about. And for those of you that are new, you will see if you're watching this live that there is a live chat thread happening kind of in a pop-up window or next to this window on YouTube. And if you're watching this later, I think you can toggle that on or off if you want to watch the chat while I'm chatting. Because some of you are watching it later and some of you are watching it now, I don't actually keep an eye on the chat. In fact, I can see it scrolling over here to the side, and I'm going to do my best to ignore it. Everything I talk about in this video, I will be linking to after the video is over. So if you give me about like a half hour after we wrap up, I've got links all ready to go. I'll add in a few more if things come up that I talk about, and then I'll publish those below the video so that you can find all the resources I'm talking about. Like if I show you yarn or a sweater I bought in Shetland or anything else I think that you might want to know, those links will be there later. So if you ask in the live thread, Susie, my freaking awesome moderator, is there, and she's going to tell you that links will come later and to come back and look for those in a little while. I know that those of you who are just joining are introducing yourselves and saying where you're from in the live chat thread, which is very, very fun. And I kind of think we should just dive right in. There's lots to share. I think we always kind of start with what I'm wearing, which kind of just links right into the Cowl Mystery Knit Along. So we might as well start off with that and then zhuzh into everything else, and we'll just go from one thing to the next. I have a list and I will go off list very quickly. So for those of you who don't know, I'm doing a mystery knit along in October to celebrate Cowltober, my favorite month of the year besides LOLEMBER or March, which I like to call Larch now, just so you know that's coming. Already with the Lola. So Cowltober is a celebration of cowls, and this year I decided it would be really fun to have a Cowl Mystery Knit Along. The Cowl Mystery Knit Along first clue comes out on Friday, October 13th, so there is still plenty of time to join us if you are on the fence. And the Cowl Mystery Knit Along is a celebration of owls, which I didn't really kind of realize how fun it was going to be to have owls as a theme for a mystery knit along. Y'all, I wake up daily and somebody's sharing a post with me with either like a really funny owl pun or a really beautiful owl video. Someone sent me one and I cannot find it, and I wish I could, of two owls kind of making out with each other and really loving on each other, and it was just like so dear. So I actually have a folder where I'm saving things on Instagram. So if you find things, please do share them with me, and then I'm going to kind of like do an amalgamation and share some owls back with you. It's really fun, and your puns are cracking me up. Seriously, you've taken the owl pun thing to like a whole new level, and I'm quite proud to call you all friends right now. The sweater that I'm wearing, I bought on Poshmark. I basically searched jacquard owl sweater or like sweaters with owls on it, because one of the things I love to say when people ask me like what we're going to be knitting in a mystery knit along is I'm always like, it's not going to be like a sweater with an intarsia dachshund on it, right? Like anything that you knit when it's a mystery is going to look like the rest of my work or like related to it in some way. So if you go back and look at my past mystery knit alongs, you'll see that they all look like something I've designed and knit, and nothing has an intarsia dachshund on it. So that's why I kind of went for this sweater. And what's super cool about this sweater is it's actually knit. Sorry, let me get my hair out of the way so you can see it. It's actually knit in Binghamton, New York, which is about an hour away from me. It turns out that there is a knitting company in Binghamton, New York that I have never been to. I feel like I'm going to have to go one day. This is knit out of cotton, clearly on a machine. It's like linked together or seamed together. It's got that like amazingly large kind of 80s style sleeve with like the tighter cuff on the end. I didn't like it when I first got it, and it has completely grown on me. And then Mr. Owl in the back, who's been on my videos for quite a long time now, he is wearing a little sweater I got him in Shetland, a little Fair Isle sweater. And just before we started this, Max said he thought it would be an awesome idea if he was wearing a sweater that had like a little intarsia me on it. Like, so I think the next time we do one of these, he'll have a sweater with an intarsia Lola, and I'll have a sweater with an intarsia owl, and then we will be like super meta, right? So that's what I'm wearing. I wore this sweater in the introductory Cowl mystery knit along video, and if you haven't watched that, I highly suggest watching it, because I go over the yarn you're going to need, I go over supplies that you're going to need, and it kind of tells you everything you need to do to be ready for October 13th. That said, I've got some assets to show you, as they say. So this little graphic, this pot, some people were asking me about, and this is was made by Potheads by Amber. I bought it when I was in Florida visiting Fort Pearls at a craft show, and it's supposed to have a plant in it, but you know I stuck yarn in that owl's head. I worked on kits with Susie from Fiber MacGyver. Hi, Susie, if you're here. I'm not looking at the chat, so I can't tell if you're here or not. And I just saw in the chat, I'm not supposed to read it, that Max, they want you to knit the sweater for Owlie with me on it. So that's going to be amazing. I worked on kits with Susie from Fiber MacGyver for Cowl Mystery Knit Along. You are certainly welcome to go stash diving, or you can use one of these kits in 7 colors. A few of the colors are sold out, but there are still plenty more. I did notice the kits come with these adorable little stitch markers, and I'll show you those on my needles in a few minutes. But I did see in the thread, I thought it would be fun in this to kind of go over some questions that you were asking me. And I did see in the thread that somebody asked me how Susie managed to get all of those kits together while I was away on the cruise. And the reality is we planned early. I think Susie and I talked in maybe, it was kind of late, honestly. It was like July, where I was like, hey, do you want to do a mystery knit along with me? I want to knit with your yarn. And she was like, yeah. And then I was like, maybe we can get little owl stitch markers made from wee ones. And then we were like, maybe we can find these cute owl end stoppers for your needles. And we kind of pulled stuff together, did a lot of ordering. All of the graphics for the mystery knit along were done before I left. So like the postcards I had sent to her before I went on the cruise. And we were just really organized. There were spreadsheets. There was texting back and forth. I think we only ended up with one Zoom meeting to kind of like do the initial thing. And she's an absolute blast to work with and a lovely human. And I am thrilled that many of you are finding a new to you yarn dyer. I think you're going to find that her color sense is stunning and her sense of humor is spot on. I feel like she and Lola really see each other. And I'm excited to tell you that if you are going to Rhinebeck weekend in Rhinebeck, New York for New York State Sheep and Wool, that Susie is going to be at Wool and Folk on Friday. And I will be coming in the afternoon and hanging out in her booth and helping people choose yarn for Cowl Mystery Knit Along. If anybody has questions, because that day the second clue is going to come out, I'll be able to kind of get you going on your needles if you need a little help. We're probably going to set up like a little zone to just kind of hang out and knit in the grass somewhere there. So I'm very much looking forward to that weekend. I will send out an email soon with I'm going to have a meetup on Saturday with a few other designer friends in the afternoon. That should be a total blast. So I'll send out an email at some point soon and set up a thread in the Ravelry group that says like where I'll be when, so that I hopefully can run into as many of you as possible. And I just made my COVID booster appointment so that I'll be like completely boosted before Rhinebeck, and that will be a relief to not worry about that and be able to hug people. So, yay. Moving on from Cowl Mystery Knit Along. If you have any questions, there are forums in the Ravelry group. You can ask questions in my Facebook group. You can ask questions below this video later and I'll see them, or at the very end I'll ask if there are any questions. So that is something that is off my needles, but the yarn that is in little Owlie's head back here, I am going to knit another one with you guys that's kind of in my signature color. It's that caramel, awesome caramel and fiery red color. So I'm going to knit one more with you all, and I haven't knit a mystery knit along with you in a while, and I'm pretty excited about that. It means I'll be able to like do things on the needles if there's any questions. I see you all making funny jokes. I'm not looking at the thread. Not looking at the thread. Okay. Other things that are off my needles, because a lot has been flying off my needles, pardon the pun, as I got ready for fall. October's N Club design, which is the final kit for 2023's N Club. Designs. Those are off the needles. They are 2 testers. I just got the pattern back from the tech editor. The yarn just arrived yesterday and today, and kits are already being built. So international kits for the N Club are going to ship next week, and then domestic will ship the week after. And I am not entirely sure when our unboxing is. It will possibly be October 15th, and if not, it will be when I get back from Rhinebeck. We're kind of in between those 2 dates, depending on if the photo shoot goes off without a hitch and it doesn't rain, basically. So everybody pray for good weather on photo shoot day, because then we can do that earlier date and get that out to you. Although I know many of the N Club members are going to be super busy with the mystery knit along, so I'm not so worried if we end up waiting another 10 days for that to go out. I will come out and tell you that there is going to be an N Club for 2024. Some of you might remember that in 23, I was like on the fence about doing one or not. This year was a ton of fun. I found, without sounding super cheesy, I found a work-life balance with it that worked out really well. I love all 3 designs that I did this year. I did some like kind of fun explorations. I think you all loved them as well. And that is a project I want to keep going, because it's kind of like bigger knits and it's a little bit more interesting. And so there will be more details about that later in October. Have to say that. September's Lola's Choice kit shipped, and I'm not showing it to you in this live. I thought I was going to, and I am not going to talk about it in this live because not everybody has gotten it yet, because the post office had a little issue with scanning my scan sheet last week. Someone didn't do it quite right. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but it was things seem to be taking just a tiny bit longer to get to their locations, and I know not everybody's gotten it yet. So some people got it very quickly, like within a day of it shipping, and other people had some kits on walkabout. Other people had a kit saying it never had been scanned and then showed up at their door. I feel like with, over 500 people in that club, I had personal communications with over 200 of you last week. So that was fun. It's nice when I like have the information and I can share with you and tell you what's going on. I think it lets you know that I really, really care a lot about getting turned with you. There's my little secret. So if you want to see that design, if you're not a member of Lola's Choice, my small knitted kit club, it is up on Ravelry. So you can just kind of search my name and you'll see that design right away. There are still a few kits left, not very many, just a few. So if you want to sign up, don't delay. And when I get back from the retreat this weekend, I'm sure I'll be closing signups and then sending out an email to everybody whose membership is done, who've like hit their 6 kit or 3 kit limit on their membership, to ask you if you want to sign back up. So that was a lot in that nutshell right there. The other thing that is off my needles is the design that is launching this weekend at the Leading Men Fiber Arts Retreat. You all are going to see that design on October 1st. I'm going to tell you, you've actually already seen it in some photos, and that's the only hint that I'm going to give you. But that is going to launch on October 1st for Cowltober. What is very fun about that kit is that it actually, or that design, is it uses the same kit as the Cowl Mystery Knit Along. So I know a few of you kind of went stash diving for one kit and then got one from Susie or got a few from Susie. So I've got another design that you'll be able to cast on and knit while you're waiting for October 13th. I do have another one right now in one of Susie's kits, as well as the Leading Men Fiber Arts kit. And it's looking so good. And Marguerite, my sample knitter, knitted in like 2.5 days. It's very addictive. It's like less than 500 yards of DK weight yarn. That's the kind of thing that can fly off your needles when you get into the zone with it. So I'm super excited to get that back and see how it's looking. What else do I have to tell you about? I'm sure. Oh, my hat. We'll talk about my hat a little more as we get closer to the cruise. How's that? I think that makes more sense. In terms of what is on my needles is November's Lola's Choice kit, which I am diving into a technique that I've done in the past, but I'm incorporating beads. And it's fun, and the knitting is very, very easy. The knitting is like beginning knitting, and I don't say that lightly. It is very beginning knitting. And then the technique that goes on top is an embellishment. There, I don't want to give too much away, but fun. November is going to be fun, and there will be a video for that one because it's a new technique for many of us. The other stuff that's on my needles has everything to do with LOLEMBER, and LOLEMBER is my countdown calendar. There are going to be some new designs for it with the small days set from Emma's Yarn, and then extras that go into the LOLEMBER countdown calendar. So that is what my needles are busy with right now, and that is what I'm bringing for travel this weekend and hotel room knitting, and I am pretty excited. I got that kind of all dialed down. I got the yarns figured out, and now it's just time to knit on it. Very fun. Oh, okay. Also, the sweater knit along is going very strong in my Ravelry group. And, I'm losing myself all of a sudden. The other thing that's on my needles is the Ingeborg Slippers by Kristen Drysdale, which we knit on the cruise together. So this pattern for the Ingeborg, I think I'm saying it right, Ingeborg Slippers by Scandiwork or Kristen Drysdale. I included this pattern for everybody in their Ultimate Knitting Cruise goodie bag. And then when we went to the mill, whose name is Hilsvag Ulefabrik, I'm going to have to talk about how I pronounce things in a second. Everyone got yarn to knit the slippers if they wanted to, and a lot of people wanted to knit the slippers, and a bunch of people finished them on the cruise or pretty close after. And I want to show you in a second kind of something that's really unique about the pattern that's really fun, because I posted about them the other day on Facebook and on Instagram, and people were really intrigued. And who here has knit Colorwork slippers before? Who here has purled Colorwork and not only knit Colorwork? So these slippers, the heel and the back of the heel and the bottom of the foot until you get in the round for like the toe and the top of the foot are all knit flat. So for me, I actually learned how to knit Colorwork on wrong side rows for the first time. Maybe I should just jump in and do it while I am talking about it, because I've got it right here on my needles. And let's go to our overhead camera. So I don't want to really show you all of Kristen's pattern, because you should be purchasing her pattern if you want to knit it. But the way that I found out about these slippers originally originally is my friend Isabel in Switzerland. When we went to Finland 2 years ago, she knit me a pair of Kristen's slippers to wear in the house, and I love them. I mean, I don't want to show them to you too closely because I know they have my cat hair in them and I've been walking around in them. These are my travel slippers, so I'll be packing them for this weekend. I kind of keep them in my suitcase so that when I need to keep my feet warm but not have it take up a ton of room, I had them on the cruise with me, and that was really nice to have when my feet got chilly and we were out on the deck. And I just quickly saw a question over in the chat, if you change hands for dominance, and that is actually what I want to talk to you about right now. So I had to do some learning with this pattern because I had never done color work on wrong side rows before, where I was purling for color work. And I am right here on what I believe is row 30, and this first stitch right here is an increase stitch or a backward loop stitch with the main color. So I'm just going to put that onto my needle, and then I'm going to zoom in so you can see this much more closely. And you will see that when I knit color work, I keep my pattern color in my left hand, and I keep my main color or my background color in my right hand. And I am going to be working across right here, and you're going to notice that I knit not as comfortably with my right hand as I do with my left hand. And I almost just messed up because that first stitch that I made, I just slip, I don't knit. So I'm just slipping that first stitch, the increase stitch I made. And now I am going to knit one, and then I am going to knit two with the background, with the pattern color. And now I'm knitting two with the background color, and I am going to continue that way across the row. So you can just kind of watch how I'm working with both of my hands here. Some people on the cruise found that they liked working with a Norwegian colorwork needle. Some people liked holding their yarn in two hands. Some people liked holding their yarn just tensioned over their left finger, their index finger in their left hand. Some people like to do that in their right hand. It was really interesting to see how we all knit color work a little bit different. So that is me working all the way across. Let's see if I did this right. Oh, I just totally knit the pattern incorrectly. I am going to continue to knit it incorrectly. I did not follow the color work sequence. I am going to be okay with that, just because I want to show you how to knit color work on wrong side rows. The most important thing is when I knit color work and I'm purling, I switch and I have my background color in my left hand, and then I have my, let's see if I can get into that increase stitch right there. I have my background color in my left hand, and then I have my pattern color in my right hand, so that the background color is coming underneath. And that is the biggest difference that you will notice that you need to do to have success and have your tension be the same and your color work stitches pop correctly. I was having a hard time with this at the beginning, and I was kind of looking for videos on YouTube, and I found some from Beth Brown Reinsel that I really, really enjoyed, that helped me understand about color dominance in color work. And what I will say about this is it's really, really fun for me to learn new things, and then it's really fun for me to share them with you. So one thing that I would love to do for the Ingeborg slipper, because I think there's a bunch of you out there that are intrigued by making these, they make great holiday presents, is I'll set up a thread for the pattern in the Ravelry, in our Ravelry group, but I'll also link to Kristen's thread, because she's not going to be following our thread. And if you have questions about her pattern, you should join her Ravelry group and ask her questions. She also has YouTube videos. She's absolutely lovely, and she is a colorwork expert, and I was thrilled to learn from her and her pattern. So hopefully that that helped you understand a bit about knitting colorwork on wrong side rows or purling with Colorwork. The next thing that I want to talk about is the Ultimate Cruise hat, which I knit. It's called the Ultimate Hat. I knit it for the cruise. I showed you these yarns in a live earlier this spring. I don't know if you remember when I showed you this box of yarn from Laxdale Yarn, and I got it in the mail and it was absolutely full of yarn, and now this is what is left after I started designing with the yarn. So if I take this hat off my head, you will see that I used 6 different colors of Laxdale yarn, and this is potentially, I think, my most successful colorwork knitting to date. I love the way these colors kind of flow in and out of each other, and you end up with this really hot pop at the center line of the pattern. One of you at the end of this live is going to be winning one of the Ultimate Knitting Cruise goodie bags. So that means you're going to get the pattern for Ingeborg Slippers. You are going to get a kit for making the Ultimate Hat, and those of you know that I'm waiting for yarn from Shetland to come, and it's probably not going to be till like later in October, till after Wool Week, that yarn comes. So the kit includes, for the hat, Laxdale yarn, which we got to go to the farm at Laxdale and learn all about their yarns, and that was incredibly cool on Shetland. And then it includes a skein of Jamieson's Ultra, which is a lace weight 50% Shetland wool, 50% lamb's wool. And then it includes 5 more colors for doing the Colorwork brim. Now, what I love about this hat is the brim is doubled. So if I kind of hold it underneath, there goes my giant hair right there. If I hold it underneath here, you can see that the lace yarn comes all the way down, and then the last like 7 rounds are knit in the main color, and then you turn your work and you work in the opposite direction for working the Colorwork brim, and then you attach it to the body of the hat. So you end up with a hat that is really warm, like right over your ears, and then also has this really kind of delicate lace up at the crown. So you start out with this really fun star crown, and then you move down into the Colorwork. And I just have to show you this picture because I look really happy in this picture because we actually made it to Shetland, and that was a highlight of the trip for us all. So fun. I just saw somebody say that maybe it could be a headband, and it could very easily, I just dropped the goodie bag. I got to go get it. So y'all can look at the background for a second. I'm disappearing. That's what happens when you have too much on the table. I'm back. Did you miss me? So the goodie bag, let's just show you the whole goodie bag while we're at it. So the first thing we did on the cruise was go to Amsterdam, and we went to Stephen and Penelope. So I got everybody bags from Stephen and Penelope, which meant I could pick them up there, which meant less in a suitcase, which was kind of nice. And then everybody got the kit to make the Ultimate Hat. And then they only got 2 more things in their little goodie bag. I was trying to keep things light. But what was in there was like, I don't know, you know me, when I buy things for people and I buy everything for goodie bags, I try to make stuff really special and thoughtful. So I found these little world map travel tins that actually had the Shetland Islands on them, and they had Norway on them. They even had the Faroe Islands, which we did not go to, but we were very, very close one day, but did not stop there. So inside these this little tin was this little case was just a few things. A ginger chew, because you need a bunch of ginger. A nail file, because everybody needs a tiny nail file in their life. A Norwegian color thimble, if for people who wanted to try to play with using that for color work. This, which I ended up finding in my cruise room, was the most helpful thing. It's a magnetic hook, and I ended up bringing a bunch of them with me, and I had my knitting bags hanging on the wall. I had my raincoat hanging on the wall. I bought Max a whole section of them because they're great on the fridge or like hanging on stuff in the studio. Anywhere you have metal, it's instantly a hook. And then everybody got some Harry Coo needle end stoppers because we were going to Scotland as well. So I wanted to make sure everybody had Harry Coo stoppers. And finally, and this was like so funny, I think when people first got this, they were like, why do I want an electric votive light? And these turned out to be totally useful, and I knew they would be because I always have one in my travel kit, if not two in my travel kit. And what these are great for is if you have a roommate in your room and you wake up in the middle of the night and you need to go to the bathroom, you can just reach over, grab your votive and turn it on, and it gives you just enough light to get to the bathroom without like fumbling for your phone and then waking yourself up because you're looking at your phone. We all know what happens when you look at your phone in the middle of the night, right? And then what some roommates were doing was having like one on the table in between them and then another in the bathroom that they would just keep on so you could like find your way to the bathroom easily. And I highly suggest having these in your travel kit. Max and I use them all the time when we travel in hotel rooms. And when all the lights are off and this is on, it totally flickers a little bit and it kind of like simulates some lovely candlelight. So that's everything in the goodie bag that one of you is going to win. I love putting thoughtful, intentional, useful kits like that together. I think you know that about me by now. Okay, I'm almost ready to show you photos of the cruise. I think the last thing is to remind you that there is a sweater knit along going to the end of the month in my Ravelry group as a way to keep us all busy until we got to Cowltober. So all of my sweater patterns are 25% off until the end of September. So if you haven't snagged any of my sweater patterns that you've been wanting, now would be a good time to do that. And that sweater knit along is open to any sweater that you are knitting, not necessarily one of my designs. And the prize for this week that was just given, and then next week is a kit to knit the Ingeborg Slippers. So I've got 2 more skeins of the Tinde that we got at Hilsvåg Ule Fabrik. And I'm going to be splitting these up, and 2 of you are going to be getting kits to make the Ingeborg slippers. So that's kind of fun. Good motivation for the last stretch of the sweater knit along. And thank you to those of you who got some sweater patterns. I appreciate it. What are we talking about now? Let's do the cruise, because I have 100 photos, and we actually found out that the system we use for photos has a limit of 50 photos. So we had to split it into 2 groups. I'm going to try not to make this become one of those painful slideshows where you get invited over to somebody's house and the slideshow never ends. So I'll jump around a bit. I'm going to talk quickly. I would like to say before we start that I've never spoken Norwegian before, that my Icelandic is very, very poor. And so I'm sure I'm going to pronounce things incorrectly, and forgive me ahead of time. I do try. Okay? The other thing I'm going to say, I see my cruisers in the chat, is of my cruise group, there were 53 of us total in the cruise group. There were 50 knitters and 3 non-knitters. And I think we had 6 Susie, Suzannes, or Susans. So the first night I was like, okay, y'all know about Barbie, where you say, hey, Barbie. So we're just starting out with like, hey, Susie. And if I did that, I was like 20% gonna get somebody whose name was Susan just by being like, hey, Susie. And by the end of the trip, I had it down. Right? But so if I mess up with any of these, we did have some crocheters on the cruise as well. If I mess up with any of these, just know that I'm saying, hey, Susie. And that is what I mean. Here we go. So when I fly, I leave from the Elmira airport, which is about 45 minutes from my house on back roads. And this is how stressful the Elmira airport is. You can see why I'm always game to travel, because if this is what you walk up to when it's time to check in for your flight, it's like not that big a deal, right? So I'm looking forward to doing that tomorrow morning at the Elmira airport. We started off in Amsterdam, and Andrea, my dear friend, who was my emotional support knitter for this trip, and is my emotional support knitter always. We stayed at a hotel where our room was like in a little garret on the third floor, and we needed help getting our bags up there, but the roof lines were scrumptious. And we were surrounded by canals, and we got to do a really fun canal tour with Stephen West and some of the people from Stephen and Penelope. And my friend Mika joined us as well. And it was a really fun way to start off the cruise. Not quite everybody could make it, but at the end, we went to Stephen and Penelope, and everybody went yarn shopping. And my friend Mika was there, and that was an absolute joy. And I got to do some things with Andrea around Amsterdam I'd never done before, like go to the flower market. I can't believe I had never been there in Amsterdam, and we drooled on bulbs for a while. And then we went to the Van Gogh Museum, and there was a really interesting exhibition of Van Gogh's later works, the pieces that he did at Arles right before he passed away. And he cranked out like 70 paintings in like 60 something days. And they were just like these really broad brushstrokes, and the lines were absolutely beautiful. And the color, just the way that he played with colors, you can really get a sense of his brushstroke from this piece. I really loved this piece a lot. Then we went out with Mika for dinner and drinks, and she turned us on to the concept that you always say yes to the Polaroid cameraman, which we turned into always saying yes to the cruise cameraman. But this is a Polaroid she got for her collection. And then it was the end of our time in Amsterdam and time to get on the boat. So we got up early, me and Andrea, and we said yes to the cameraman right away. And I'm clearly already cracking up. That's our giant Rotterdam. It looks like it's about to just fly right through us, a little dangerous there. We ran into cruise people right away. We had some crews that were all coordinated for the trip. This is, sorry, I had a brain fart for there. It'll come back to me in a second, but those were amazing crocheted sweaters. It was Susie and Susie, and they're amazing crocheted sweaters. Sorry, sneakers, losing my words. And then we had a cruise day where we had some classes, and then we were on our way to Norway, and our first stop was Bergen. And we took a bus trip over to Hilsvåg Ulefabrik and learned all about a very old mill that mills all Norwegian yarn. And it was very, very interesting to learn about their production and see their really old equipment. I've seen a lot of mills, and it was very interesting to visit this mill. They had these like little kind of wool trolls and elves everywhere. They had rocks covered with wool. It was perfect. And then this is a pair of slippers that Fiona knit with yarn that she got at Hilsvåg Ulefabrik. So really fun to purchase yarn and then make something that people could finish by the end of the cruise. From there, we went on to Oleana, which is kind of like a high-end knitting, like luxury knitwear factory on a fjord outside of Bergen. And it was like the exact opposite experience of going to the mill. Everything was incredibly clean. It was like really, really crisp work. I will give you a link if you want to check out more of what they do. It's really kind of like traditional, but kind of elevated and modern sweater design, all done on Japanese knitting machines and then linked together by hand. A huge amount of work went into those sweaters, and a few of you got pieces that were really, really beautiful. So after Bergen, we went on to Molde, and I absolutely loved Molde. It's a small town. It's known as the City of Roses. We got off the ship in the morning and hiked up to the top of the hill mountain above the ship to kind of get views of the whole fjord and get some fresh air. And we saw roofs with things growing out of their heads, and there were just like living roofs everywhere. And when we made it, this is one of the things I love about trips, is like when we were in Bergen. Here, I'm going to come back to me for a second so things don't get boring. When we were in Bergen, we were all together. We were on the bus, right? And we all did a bus trip together. And then a few of us went off to a knitting store before we made our way back to the boat. In Mulda, we had a day to like do what we felt like doing. So some people signed up for trips off the cruise ship. Some of us just like went for hikes on our own, whatever. But when you're with that bigger group, wherever you go, you run into people. So we are on the boat right there, or sorry, we're off the boat and we're up at the top of this mountain and we run into Susie and Susan right there, right? And so we took a picture of us all knitting at the top of the mountain, and then we said goodbye and we went our different ways. And then we were down at the yarn shop a few hours later, and who did we run into at the yarn shop? But that's just kind of like one of the fun, magical bits of traveling with a large group like that. And then there was a rose that I snapped just right at the end of the day to remind us that we were in the city of roses. And one of the things I loved about Mulda is all those trails that we were hiking were actually ski trails. And they were really set up for cross-country skiing or Nordic skiing in the winter. Not, people were hiking for sure, but I want to go back there and ski so badly one day. It is on my list, right? Okay, so going back there, City of Roses. And then we had another sea day on our way to Iceland. So I did some teaching. This must have been an evening class because I see a glass of wine there, but I did a special color of the sprang cuff for the cruise in like Northern Lights colors. So we were working on doing that. And then I taught a Shetland lace class on another day, and this one, I'm wondering what I'm saying, but it is something about lace for sure, because I'm showing a lace piece under the camera right there. I don't have a lot of pictures of food for you, but the food was really good on Holland America. We really, really enjoyed most of our meals. So I think this is my only food pick, because otherwise this could just be a whole log of food and we'd all be hungry by the end of it. One night we had signature color night, which I am going to always do on a boat forever, every time I do a cruise, because we all have in our wardrobe the colors that we wear the most. So I was like, y'all just dress head to toe in your signature color. And everyone went for it. Super fun. Look at Suzanne there in all of her pink. So fun. She was all New Orleans that night. Very, very good time. And it was really fun that everybody really got into the spirit of signature color night. Then after that day at sea, we came into Akureyri, which I know I'm not saying that right. It's just how I say it. And it is a small city on the northern shore of Iceland. And it was just like yarn bombed everywhere. So kind of everywhere we looked, the garbage cans were covered in these like yarn bombed creations, which was such a hoot. The traffic lights, I don't think have a picture of it, are all hearts. And then we went to the botanical gardens, which was freaking awesome. And this was a tacky and delightful heart of blooming kales that I just went to the Amish market the other day to try to buy my own to reproduce this, but they didn't have any left, and that was disappointing. And this was a Equinops that I really loved, and we ran into a few knitters while we were there, which was very fun. Oh, I think I don't have that photo here. And then we got to go, let me see if I can find, oh yeah, here's our buddies that we were at the botanical garden with, which was very fun. And then we got to go to a yarn store, and I think that I have something to show you. Let me see, I tried to like line it up, and then I think if I go to my overhead, see, and I zoom in, this is how you say the name of the yarn store. Are you ready?
Okay, one more time.
Garn I gangi.
Okay, one more time.
Garn I gangi.
Okay, so I think that's Gauni Gauki. is how you say it. Do you see why I had to go do that to be like, how do you say the name? Because I want to call it Garni Ganji, which is not correct. And it was a super cute little yarn store. And if you look closely at that photo all the way on the right, you can see that they have some of that Rico Make It tweed there, which I've not ever seen in a US store. But I got a bunch of fun yarns to play with for future designs. Already showed you that photo. And then after we left Akureyri, we were on to Isafjord, which is a little town in the West Fjords. And the light when we were there that day was just absolutely magical. It was like the perfect Icelandic day where the sun was filtered through the clouds. So it was like bright but gray, and colors just kind of like resonate in that light. And I love it so much that Andrea and I was actually feeling a little off that day. We'd had some people sick on the boat, and I was worried I was getting sick. And so I didn't really want to be near anybody. I just wanted to kind of like breathe fresh air and walk. And so she and I walked and took photos and breathe deep breaths of fresh air. And you can see just like that green, how it's kind of like vibrating and resonating on the hills. We took pictures of things that were, just down on the ground right in front of us. And then this is a very good story. Are you all ready for this story? Sometimes you have to pee when you go for a long walk. And I love peeing outside. It's a little known thing about me. I am happy to pee in the woods or wherever, as long as, I'm a little bit private and not showing everything to everybody driving by. So Andrew and I were walking down this road, and I had to go, and I wanted to keep walking. And we saw, as we were walking, all of these like barns that were all like open air, and like we didn't realize, I thought they were barns, but they were drying sheds. So I was like, well, I can go up behind that barn, and it seems like that's hidden from the road, and I'll be able to take care of my business. And so we go up there, and you can see us kind of like walking up, and then I squat, and sometimes I take a selfie, and that's embarrassing. But we realized that the barns were just completely full of drying fish heads, and there were like shark fish heads and regular fish heads, and it was like eerie and awesome in like the best Icelandic way possible. It was one of those like, how could you not go do that, right? Like, how could you not? How could you not? Always pee outside. There's the moral of the story. And you also need to not fall when you do that. And then it was time to come back to the boat. And I just really loved the perspective of our giant ass boat our boat's giant ass kind of, and it was flanked by the giant fjord around it, and the giant hill just kind of like coming up behind it. And little did we know when we got back on the boat that we were going to be on that boat for 2 days, because we got back onto the boat and found out that there was a giant storm, which I had heard about, but I hadn't heard what was happening yet, that had brewed up on the Atlantic Ocean, and Reykjavik had like 40-foot waves and like sandstorms on the southern coast, and there was no world we were going to Reykjavik. So we ended up turning the boat around and going back the way we came, and we were at sea for 2 days. And so we made the best of being at sea for 2 days. And a few of us I know did not deal with the rough seas very well. Others of us, I just ate a lot of ginger, and like I had ginger pills, and I had ginger candies, and I drank ginger tea. And we all made it through. We had extra activities. We had classes. I had like stuff in my bag I hadn't pulled out yet for just in case. We crocheted around rocks. I was like, this calls for crocheting around rocks, because people had been collecting rocks. So we did that project. It just happens sometimes, but we made the best of it. And we were all very happy when we hit shore 2 days later. So we left Isafjord, And then we were on sea, so I thought it would be fun for these days that we were on sea that if I showed you some of the art that was on the boat, because the art was actually really spectacular on the boat. And this was a whole knitted piece of Amsterdam row houses. And here's like a little close up so you can kind of see the knitting stitches. And I'm not sure if this was done by hand or on machine or a combination thereof, but I was really blown away by all of the art on the boat. And it would be like different stairwells would have different themes. And so you'd kind of get to know where you were on the boat by like if you were in the music theme or the building theme. This was this whole like scribble crochet piece that was very interesting. And now let's see if I can make it. There we go. Sorry. Then we had a fashion show one night when we were stuck at sea, and here is Hannah and Steffi wearing, they made these amazing sets where they both made hot flash, but they put beads on their hot flash, and then they made coordinating tank tops for underneath, which I just like absolutely love. So you can see where they put the beads on their hot flash and then what's going on with their beaded tank tops. And here are a few more of our cruisies wearing, I'm sorry that I don't remember what everybody's wearing. I know Magda on the right designed that gorgeous lace shawl. I think that pattern's up on Ravelry, or it will be soon. If it isn't, I know she's in the chat, so maybe she can chime in about that. Deborah wove everything that she's wearing on the left, which is also amazing. Suzanne is wearing La Heffa. Catherine is wearing Laxo and Novel Long with yarn that she got on a trip with me to Ireland. And then Janelle is wearing a dress that she made. And she's also a phenomenal designer, Janelle. It was really fun to get to know her and her work. The other thing I got to do when we got stuck at sea is learn how to play Mahjong, which I have always wanted to learn how to do. And I had tried to learn to play Mahjong before the pandemic, but the only place in Ithaca that taught it, I had to be 50 and I was 49. But now I'm old enough and I am committed to learning Mahjong in the next 20 years because there are a lot of rules, but my brain liked it. And so that was very fun to start learning how to do. There is Creepy Baby, who we called Creepy Carolina, and Thea Coleman and Fiona hatched a plan to have Creepy Baby join me at sea. So she just showed up in my bag one day. And then our stewards for our room kept surprising me and Andrea by like doing interesting things with the sheep, with Und and their towels and Creepy Baby. Like one day I came in and Und and Creepy Baby were kissing each other, which was really awkward and weird. But we had lots of fun, is what I'm trying to tell you. Her name's not Shirley, it's Carolina. Then we made it to Invergordon and we were all very happy to get off the boat, and a bunch of us went on a tour to Dunrobin Castle, which is one of the largest castles. It has the most rooms in Scotland in the kind of Northern Highlands, and it had absolutely gorgeous gardens. So we got to wander the gardens, and they had a falconry, and this is a peregrine falcon. So I learned a bunch about peregrine falcons in Scotland from the falconer. They also had an owl that I got a few pictures of who was super cute. And I don't know if some of you remember, but we have peregrines in Taganic Gorge. So I'm quite intrigued by them. And it was very fun to get to see one up so close. And then I went and took a little break and went down to the beach and collected some more rocks because, you know, I love rocks on vacation, and just kind of took a breath to sit on the earth and not be on a boat. And that was lovely. And then we left Inverness and I had, all my fingers and all my toes crossed because the last 3 or 4 boats that had been supposed to be going to Shetland had not been able to get off the boat onto the tenders to shore because the seas were too rough. And so I just basically was like lighting my little electric candle and hoping we were going to make it off the boat into Lerwick and for our tour of Shetland. And as you can see from that photo, it was glassy and gorgeous. And we woke up early so we could just see as we were coming into Shetland. And then there is Lerwick. We could literally see Jimmy Perez's house from the boat, which was pretty cool. We were lots of pointing happening right there. And we took tenders in and said yes to the lovely cruise guys. And here's lots of people who finished their ultimate hats in time to wear them. Those 2 days at sea actually really helped us have enough time to finish them, I think. I love this photo so much. You can just tell how thrilled we all were to be in Shetland. And then we broke up into two groups and we went on tour buses and all did the same things in different orders. So we went to St. Ninian's Isle. You can see there's like a little sandbar right there. It's down towards the south of the main island in Shetland, and that sandbar is sometimes covered by water and sometimes not. There's me and Fiona wearing our hats. It was hot and sunny in Shetland. We got very, very lucky. Not always like that in Shetland on a day. So really, really thrilled to have that. I kissed a sheep, because if you know me well, you know any chance to pee outside, I will also always kiss a sheep if they're willing. And this guy clearly was bottle fed because he was very interested in smooching with me, which is awesome. And I'm not quite sure why that sunset's there. It shouldn't be there that. I almost had these all in order. Here are some sheep. These are the sheep that made the wool from the ultimate hat. So it was extra cool to get to visit them and see where they lived and how thrilled they were to be sheep on the Shetland Islands. And then we went and we got to go and meet Sheila at Laxdale Yarn and learn all about her yarns and color work and knitting from her. She is an absolute joy of a human, and I'm thrilled to know her and have her in my life. We had a very good time looking at colors. I think people thought about using, choosing other colors to knit other versions of the ultimate hat. I got some more to maybe try to do in blue and purple version at some point. And then we went on to Wilma Malcolmson's, the Shetland designer. And while I was there, I bought myself a sweater that I'm not wearing tonight because it's too hot. But I bought myself a beautiful sweater that she designed, and she knits on knitting machines, and I absolutely love it. And then I realized when I got home that I think that this is the same sweater that Jill Draper bought when we were in Shetland together in like 2017. And I haven't told her yet that I'm a copycat and bought the same sweater, but it fit me beautifully. It looks so good with the N Club design. So I could completely write it off because I'll wear it in the photo shoot for the N Club pieces. And I really love when I have kind of like outfits figured out for photo shoots kind of knocked out of the way like that. So I'm very excited about this because I'm not one for knitting a fingering weight sweater on size 2 needles. So thank you, Wilma, for knitting my new favorite sweater for me. And Wilma is a phenomenal colorwork designer. I highly suggest you check out her website at some point. I think shopping is down right now on her website, but when it's up, she does have kits for knitting some of her designs, and then she has like mitts and hats. And my favorite fingerless mitts are from her, and I got myself a second pair as a backup. And then we went to the Shetland Textile Museum and got to see one of Anne Unson's Shetland lace fences. You've probably seen photos of her fences before. That was outside. And then they have some jumpers stretched and blocking on blocking boards. And it was a small and very sweet museum. And they had a scarf that you could knit on. And we all kind of took turns knitting a row or two on this like crazy long scarf. You can see how long it is, and there were people knitting before us and people knitting after us, but it was really fun to kind of sit down and knit a little bit and then write in the book and say where you were from. And it was just kind of fun to see all the different styles of knitting on there. And it's a crazy piece of knitting, and I forget what's going to happen to it one day, but something cool. They had something called the Bella Tate collection, which was a collection of knitting from Isabella. I guess her name is Isabella Jessie Johnson, and she became Bella Tate when she married. And she died in 2000 at the age of 74. And she was an absolutely phenomenal knitter. And they had a bunch of sweaters that she knit and a fair number of absolutely gorgeous lace shawls that I was enamored with. And I took a lot of pictures. I particularly love this stitch. I know that I have it in a book somewhere. I don't remember its name, but you can expect to see it in something at some point because I can just see how I could like undulate and grow with beads on it. And this is one of the things that I love about travel is finding kind of new stitches and inspiration and places to kind of jump off. And then, because we were not done yet, we went to Jameson and Smith, and everybody bought some yarn. And then after that, we had about 3 hours to wander around Lerwick, go to Jameson's, which we did, check out some other shops, just kind of like wander and look and explore. I took a bunch of photos, and then we were walking down the main street, Andrea and I, and we ran into Martha and Vicky, who happened to be in Shetland on another tour. And we knew that each other was there, but we kind of said, I think we'll be on the main street around this time. Maybe we'll run into each other. And we totally did. And it was just like one of those magic travel moments, lots of hugging, so glad to see each other. They had a great trip, we had a great trip, and we got to kind of share notes and laugh a lot. It was really, really fun, just kind of a highlight. And then there's our wake leaving Shetland. Supposedly that night, there was a whale out back there, but I can't see him in this photo. We kept missing the whales. I saw other people got to see whales from the boat, and I was distracted. And then finally, we went to Edinburgh, and that was our last stop on the trip. We had an overnight in Edinburgh, so we had kind of like an afternoon and evening, and then part of a next day. And we wandered and explored and walked a ton. And it was fun to be in a city later at night because every other time we had to kind of be on the back on the boat early. And we went and saw a really interesting exhibit at the National Museum on the little black dress. And I have here, I wanted to read this to you because sometimes when you go to an exhibit, you'll read the text on the walls. I forget what they call that text in museums. And it's like, or like the words are too big, or, it doesn't really like say it like it is. But I absolutely loved this just one paragraph about the little black dress, and I wanted to share it with you. The exhibit was called Beyond the Little Black Dress. And here we go. The Little Black Dress, or LBD, first captured the fashionable imagination in the 1920s as a radically modern, masculine-inspired style, free form, free from the earlier constraints on women's dress. Endlessly imitated and reinvented, its image has reverberated throughout popular culture, tracing the shifting social tides of the 20th and 21st centuries. The color black is open to a myriad of interpretations, simultaneously expressive of piety and perversion, respect and rebellion. It can be influenced by factors such as cultural background, faith, gender, political affiliation, or economic situation. As such, the LBD is a blank canvas on which to project identity and cultural meaning. Frickin' love that, because true, right? Sometimes the black dress is something of piety, like a nun would wear, or sometimes the black dress is like that sexy little number you wear with some stiletto heels, right? Sometimes it's used with religious connotations, like Wiccan connotations. There was Meghan Markle's dress was there that she wore in the interview with Oprah that had the lilies or irises on one shoulder. And there was like a whole plaque about the meaning of those flowers and what they meant about freedom and self-expression. It was a really interesting exhibit, and I'm so glad that I got to check it out. And it was fun. I mean, as much as I love doing all of our knitting stuff, and I will always do all of our knitting stuff, it was fun to do something that was like fashion adjacent and really got me thinking. There was a dress that you can see all the way over on the right-hand side by Alexander McQueen. There's a little bit of a close-up right there that was all hand done with beads. And at some point I'll post some more photos of maybe that quote and a few of the pieces I took photos of on my Facebook page, because really intriguing. And then Andrea and I went out for whiskey because one whiskey tasting in Scotland, and that was the night I did not go to knit night with everybody. I think that was the one night where we like went out for pizza at midnight on the boat, you know. And there is Edinburgh at midnight right before we grabbed our bus back to the boat. So fun. And on our last day at sea, on our way back to Amsterdam, we got some photos of bling tea in process and finished, and then a few close-ups. We were all hungry and it was windy and really bright out, so it was hard to get photos. And then we got some very fun group pics of everybody that could make it. I know that not everybody is in this photo, but almost everybody made it. And what I will say about the cruise is that it was really fun. It was a fair amount of work for me, which it always is. Like, a trip is never not work, so I'm not surprised when something's work. We did have some COVID, which was a bummer. It was a bummer that variant exploded right as we started. So as you went through those photos, you saw some people were wearing masks, some people weren't. We were pretty cautious when we were in our knitting room and like when we were on Shetland, so that we were not exposing other people to germs that we knew that we had amongst us. And we had some people that missed a fair number of days of the cruise because they needed to isolate in their rooms while they were getting better. And I wish that hadn't happened. It seems to just be part of travel. Like, I came home and I was basically like, travel in this day and age is not for sissies. It's you gotta roll with it, especially when the boat's going like that, right? So I hope that was fun. I hope that wasn't too long. We're going over an hour here, but I just have a few more things to share with you. I haven't shown you all of my yarn acquisitions, although I did talk about the Tinda, this amazing Norwegian wool. I got some more lace wools when I was in Shetland to play with, and I'm teaching Shetland lace this weekend. So I'm going to take all of these with me when I go over some Shetland lace techniques at the Leading Men Fiber Arts Retreat. And I got some 1-ply cobweb. So this would be like for a really traditional Shetland lace wedding shawl, you would use this 1-ply cobweb. This is a 2-ply cobweb over here. So it's 2 strands, maybe I'll put them next to each other, 2 strands held together. So it's just a little bit heavier. It's 100% Shetland wool. And really, really fine, would make a really, really fine piece. And then these 2 yarns are, one of them's by Jamieson's and one of them's Jamieson and Smith. And they are both a 2-ply lace weight. And they are both 50% lamb's wool and 50% Shetland wool. This is the yarn that I used for the top of the hat, of the ultimate hat. They're both absolutely gorgeous, and I kind of want to see how they behave. I think it would be really fun to swatch the 2 of them at some point in the same stitch and get an idea of how they like behave pre-blocking and post-blocking, and just kind of like put them through their paces. So that's on my list for a rainy day because I have a bunch of other knitting on my needles that has to happen first. And then when I was at the I call it Garni Ganji, which we know is wrong, store in Iceland, I got some Holst garn, which I have never knit with before, but I have heard about it. And these are 2 bases that I had not seen before. One of them is 55 lamb's wool, 45 cotton. It's a light fingering weight. I think it would make a gorgeous summer shawl or summer tank. And then this one is 70 wool and 30 silk. So you can see these kind of like flecks or noops of the silk in there that dye themselves differently. And I tell you, this is going to be my color for 2024. I think this is my new signature color. If it doesn't have too much yellow in it, I can wear it really well. Like, here's an example of it. Kind of hotter, right? Really fun. I really want to knit some kind of spring sweater and something hot like this. I think even this is maybe like a little too toned down, but like this, really fun. So I see a sweater in this color in my future. Mark my words. And to knit on that in the middle of winter when it is like blurg outside is going to be very fun. I saw somebody saying that Stephen West used Holtz garn for his knit along. I'm not sure which base. They have a lot of different bases, so I would have to look and see which of the bases he was using. It might be heavier than the light fingering weight. I'm not sure. But I'm excited to see what happens with that mystery because his mysteries are always like spot on fun. In terms of like reading and watching and eating, I finished Tom Lake, that was read by Ann Patchett, read by Meryl Streep. Highly suggest. And I just started the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. I'm going to see her speak at Cornell the first week of October, so I'm kind of trying to get somewhat into her book so I get an idea of her voice and style. She's a fantasy writer, and I'm not typically a fantasy reader, but I am always game for something, so trying that out. And then reading-wise, I've been reading Hello, Beautiful, which is a novel by Anne Napolitano, Anne. And I made it halfway through, and it's really depressing. And I'm not sleeping well because it's not beautiful. It's sad right now. So I might come back to it at some point, but I had to take a break because it was just too much for reading at night. So I started Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt, about a woman who cleans in an aquarium and an octopus who likes to get free and explore, and the relationship that they build with each other, and it is fire. So highly suggest that. And then watching, when I came home from the cruise, I decided it was time to watch The Summer I Turned Pretty. So I watched all of that while I was knitting on some deadlines, and that was great fun. And in terms of the kitchen, not a lot of cooking because I've only been home for a little window, but the cherry tomatoes in the garden have been going bonkers. And who remembers the viral tomato feta thing that happened during the pandemic, where like Finland ran out of feta cheese because everybody was making the viral feta tomato pasta? I realized I could make a tomato feta bake, but not put it on pasta, because we made it one time with the pasta and we didn't love it so much. So I found a recipe, and I'll link to it below because it was super good, that used like shallots and garlic and a little bit of hot pepper and some like salt and other spices, and then cherry tomatoes and feta, and you bake it, and then you just kind of like break off pieces of the feta and spread it on bread or eat it on crackers. I had it like with an omelet one night, and I'm like hungry thinking about it. It was so freaking good. And the shallots and the garlic just gave it this depth, and then also not just like mixing it into the pasta and kind of like losing the intensity of the flavor. Highly suggest. Ooh, and I got the new World Central Kitchen cookbook just came out, and that came in the mail, and I'm excited to look through here and find some recipes. There's some arepa recipes. There's a few foods. There's Aisha's chicken parmesan. That looks really yummy. So it could be fun if other people get this cookbook, maybe as we get ready for Knit for Food 2024, to kind of all like have a cook along and choose something to make together and like compare how we change recipes a little bit, but just kind of like delve into the world of World Central Kitchen. So pretty excited to be choosing some recipes out of this book. Recipes that don't include baking because my oven is broken, and it's been broken for a while. And it's the last appliance we ever bought. So like the last one that came into the house and the first one to break. And so it's been broken for quite a while, but we were stuck on anger. Like, you know, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and her like stages of grief. We were stuck on the like, I'm really mad that the oven broke and it cost so much money and it's broken. And then finally, I think I just hit acceptance, where I'm like, and now I want a new oven because we're coming into winter and I miss baking, and I want to be able to do like whole sheet pans of vegetables and not just like, everything I bake is in a 9x9 pan that fits in my toaster oven, which is fine. I am not suffering, but an oven for winter would be a blessing on my house. And so I'm hoping for it. We just have to choose one, and choosing is hard for us. It seems like decisions are easy, but decisions like that, like I want it to last more than 2 years, and all of the warranties on ovens are 2 years, which is dumb. You all agree with me, I need an oven. I mean, we're all in agreement. Max is too. It's not like anybody's saying no to me. It's just like choosing the one and feeling like it's the best one. I don't buy things lightly. I don't like to buy trash. I like something to last. I'm going to shut up about it and talk about last time's giveaway. And then I am going to ask you if you have any questions. So now is a good time if you have any questions to start putting them into the chat thread so that when I am done doing this, I can look over and see if you have any questions, anything I missed. This was last month's giveaway, the new knitting stitch dictionary. I asked you all to tell me about what sweaters you were knitting, what sweater designs of mine you liked, and Karen Prengaman 7623 is the winner of this awesome book. What I'm going to actually do, Karen, is order you one on Amazon and have it shipped to you because I want to keep this one. And she said, I'm currently working on artichoke French hoodie and I'm pretty sure it's going to be my favorite when it's done. Favorite finished sweater is Tasca worsted. Is that a sweater? Yes, Tasca worsted is a vest knit in worsted weight yarn with pockets, and I love that it's your favorite. I wore it on the cruise, and I forgot how much I loved it, and I'm thinking about making one or two more for this winter because they just layer so beautifully, and I love those little pockets. Okay, I'm looking over at questions. Will I do Knit Ithaca again? The answer is yes, maybe I should. So clearly not 2023, but it is time to think about for 2024. I have been waiting for the Women's Museum Hall of Fame to open in Seneca Falls, which is in an old knitting mill right along the river in Seneca Falls, because I think it would be an absolutely phenomenal place to go on a tour for like our day out on Knit Ithaca. So I'm hoping they're still not open, but I'm hoping that they're opening in 2024 because they're just getting their elevator in. And so I kind of know that that would be the thing I really want to do. I think we could really lean into Seneca Falls and all the amazing history around that area, both with the suffragettes and with the Underground Railroad, and also knit together, which I love and I know you love too. So yes, I know you want to as much as I want to, and maybe the way to do it to make sure everybody does it is like 2 weekends in a row, so we can do 2 groups of 50 because that's how many fit on a bus, and I like to be on the bus with you. I don't want to have to like split. Somebody else said, will I have a kit for the Colorwork hat and slippers? I will have a kit for the hat. Yarn is on order from Shetland, and as soon as that's here, we will wind it up into kits. And if you are on my mailing list, or if you have left a comment over on Ravelry on the pattern page, people who left comments on the Ravelry pattern page will get an email first, and then it'll go out to my email list. I will not have a kit for the slippers because that is not my design. So I would get in touch with Kristen of Scandiwork for that, and I will give you a link to those slippers below when we are done. Do we have a knit for food date? No, we do not have a knit for food date. I think once I'm back from this weekend, it's time to think about that. We typically announce the date on Giving Tuesday. So the Tuesday after Thanksgiving is typically when we say when Knit for Food is going to be in 2024. What I noticed last year was there were a few knit-a-thons that kind of used our structure, which is absolutely fine. Like if it helps you raise money, yay, go for it. Let's do the things. But I noticed that they timed themselves right around our knit-a-thon, which made the sharing of our knit-a-thon a little bit confusing. But I also want you all to have enough time to plan, to get off work, to make sure you have childcare if you need it, to, just figure it out so that you're available, because I know it is one of our favorite days of the year to be together. So Giving Tuesday should be the day. If I know sooner, I'll tell you sooner, just so you can kind of save the date. I don't need to keep that in. Okay, so anybody other questions? I'm not seeing any other questions. Oh, I see somebody said something about roasting tomatoes, cherry tomatoes with gnocchi, and I just saw that somewhere else. We make gnocchi in a skillet all the time, but throwing them in and roasting it would be really good with the feta. And now I'm hungry and I'm having popcorn for dinner tonight because I had late lunch. Everybody, thank you. My colorful scarf in the cruise photo, I can't tell you what that is. There's my horrible wink for you, Susie. ready for the giveaway prompt, and then we're saying goodbye. Wink, wink. The giveaway prompt is, if you could go on an adventure with Lola, where would you want to go on that adventure? Do not leave your answer in the live chat. Wait for this to be over and then leave it in the main video comments. So those will open as soon as this is over. Where do you want to adventure with Lola? And you might win the goodie bag from the Ultimate Knitting Cruise. You guys are so much fun. Thank you so much for listening to me yammer for a really long time. I'm thirsty. Happy knitting.